Hi everyone, this is Jim with JP Reacts, where you come to hear a former candidate tell you what politicians say, what they mean by what they say, and sometimes what they don't say. Today we're going to listen to President-elect Biden's plan for, it's called the American Rescue Plan. It was announced a couple days ago. Hopefully you've already looked at it so you can see we can get some more in-depth conversations about it here. This is a longer video, so I'm probably going to break it up into a few different videos that I'm posting. Whenever in this new mode, instead of posting it all as one, I'll break it up into a bunch of them, and it will be posted on consecutive days, so you don't have to wait till my normal posting time. I'll still do a normal video on Thursday. If this one turns into 4 videos where it's posted Monday through Thursday, then obviously the 4th one will be the normal video for Thursday. But if it ends up being 3 or less, then you'll get a different video for Thursday. Hopefully that works. If you're interested in this, stay tuned after this. Okay, so we'll jump into the beginning portion of this video, right into President-elect Joe Biden.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. It's been 343 days since the virus that has ravaged our nation tragically claimed its first life. On February the 6th in 2020, Patricia Dowd took her last breath at home under the California sun in Santa Clara. She was 57 years old, a beloved wife, mother, daughter, sister. She never knew she had the virus at the time when most folks never heard about the virus. But just like that, she was gone. And almost exactly 1 year later, nearly 400,000 of our fellow Americans have met the same cruel fate. Countless families and friends left behind with unrelenting grief and guilt, anger and frustration. And the emptiness felt by the loss of life is compounded by the loss of our way of life. During this pandemic, millions of Americans, through no fault of their own, have lost the dignity and respect that comes with a job and a paycheck.
So that's pretty big confirmation of what we already know about the pandemic so far. We've crossed the 400,000 deaths milestone this past week. Also, it's not just the deaths that are important. 400,000 deaths is a lot of deaths, especially when we're, I think, up to like 4,000 a day almost, if not more. But the bigger issue is all the other effects after you get the virus. You have you could have sustained breathing problems, mobility problems, problems with your smell, and there are a host of other ones that come along with it. So we need to continue, I'm sure he's going to bring it up, but we need to continue to focus on doing what we can do until we can all get vaccinated, which is wash your hands, keep yourself socially distanced, which means don't go into big groups if you can avoid it. And when you are out in public, wear a mask that covers your nose and your mouth. Wear it as properly as possible, which is covering your nose and mouth. And then all those people, because this crisis was mismanaged by the President Trump administration, we've lost a lot of jobs. And a lot of people are out of work, and it's not their fault that this pandemic raged across the country. So hopefully, it sounds like he's going to address what his plan is for that, and hopefully he can get into it and also talk about where we go from here. So let's keep listening.
Millions of Americans never thought they'd be out of work. Many of them never even envisioned the idea, are facing eviction, waiting for hours in their cars to feed their families as they drive up to a food bank. Millions have kept their jobs but have seen their hours and paychecks reduced, barely hanging on as well. That's happening today in the United States of America. Just as in the midst of the dark winter of this pandemic, as cases, hospitalizations, and deaths spike at record levels, there is real pain overwhelming the real economy. One where people rely on paychecks, not their investments, to pay for their bills and their meals and their children's needs. You won't see this pain if your scorecard is how things are going on Wall Street. But you will see it very clearly if you examine what the twin crises of a pandemic and this sinking economy have laid bare. The growing divide between those few people at the very top who are doing quite well in this economy and the rest of America.
It is true. We have seen a lot of the stock markets rebound and continue to do well in this, even during this pandemic. Also, I don't know if he's going to go into it. The pandemic has more greatly affected people in lower economic states mainly because of access and healthcare insurance not being available, but also specifically people of color. They've had a higher death rate, more loss of jobs, more economic impact than every other class of every other group of people that are in this country. So we really need to keep that in mind when we're looking at these things. It's not just what you see when you look, oh, the Dow Jones is up. That doesn't really matter. That's not the economy. The economy is regular people working jobs and regular people having to pay their bills, and including rent. If you're not working, it's hard to pay rent, right? And then you're choosing between rent and feeding your kids. That's not a choice that any American should have to make.
Just since this pandemic began, the wealth of the top 1% of the nation has grown roughly $1.5 trillion since the end of last year.
Wow.
4 times the amount for the entire bottom 50% of American wage earners. Some 18 million Americans are still relying on unemployment insurance. Some 400,000 small businesses have permanently closed their doors. And it's not hard to see that we're in the middle of the once-in-several-generations economic crisis with a once-in-several-generations public health crisis.
Yeah, small businesses in particularly in the service industries have definitely been hit hard, especially restaurants and in hospitality industries. All those have been hit really hard. So it's really incumbent on making sure we can take care of those people. Yes, this was I want to correct something from President-elect Biden there. Yes, this is a once in a generation or once in a really long time pandemic, public health crisis, but it has been an ongoing economic crisis. It hasn't just started now. Yes, it's been the pandemic has made it worse, but the crisis didn't start here. So we want to make sure that we're completely on the same page on that. The crisis not only goes back to 2007 when the last economic crisis. So if we were just looking at economic crises, whatever, we have 2 in most people's lifetimes right now, just between the crash in 2007, 2008, and then again now from this COVID pandemic. Ironically, both happening under Republican presidents. But the squeeze on the middle class and the lower class has been going back all the way to probably, if you look at most statistics, back to the early 1980s, when really the wealth of the top earners spiked and most middle class or lower income people stayed flat or even went down in some cases. So it's been going on for now, we're talking 50 years. So hopefully we can start turning that long-term trend around, but also keep in mind there have been 2 crises during most people's lifetimes, especially hard hit on the millennial generation, which I am not part of, but I have a lot of friends that are in that generation who came up during the 2007, 2008 crisis and trying to find jobs, and then are now just starting to get up to speed and now are facing another crisis, both of which weren't their fault. So let's continue to listen.
The crisis of deep human suffering is in plain sight, and there's no time to waste. We have to act, and we have to act now. This is what economists are telling us. More importantly, it's what the values we hold dear in our hearts as Americans are telling us. A growing chorus of top economists agree that in this moment of crisis, with interest rates at historic lows, we cannot afford inaction. It's not just that smart fiscal investments, including deficit spending, are more urgent than ever. It's that the return on these investments in jobs, racial equity, will prevent long-term economic damage, and the benefits will far surpass the cost. A growing number of top
That's another big key there. A lot of people worry about deficit spending and whatnot, but when interest rates are low, the return on the debt taken on during these types of crises is much more than what the interest would be. When the government borrows and invests in people, getting people back to work, getting the economy going again, those dollars come back more than what we spent in tax revenue. So, for example, the food stamp program, otherwise it's now known as SNAP, returns much more, for every dollar we spend, returns much more than that dollar back in tax revenue. Let me quickly look that up. Basically, for every dollar that we give in the SNAP program, which again is the food stamp program, we end up getting about $1.70 back in revenues to the federal government. So it is a really good, when you invest in people, you invest in the economy. And it's not wasted money. When interest rates are low, it's always better to borrow than to get the investment up and to build your economy up so when interest rates go up, you can start paying back some of that debt, which is the ideal situation.
Top economist has shown even our debt situation will be more stable, not less stable, if we seize this moment with vision and purpose. And so tonight, I'd like to talk to you about our way forward. A two-step plan of rescue and recovery. A two-step plan to build a bridge to the other side of the crisis we face to a better, stronger, more secure America. Tonight, I'll lay out my first step, the American Rescue Plan, that will tackle the pandemic and get direct financial assistance and relief to Americans who need it the most.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it here. Obviously, we haven't really gotten into his plan yet, but this video is already starting to get a little bit longer, so I want to make sure that I keep to my word and keep these shorter and just breaking up into segments. So far we've covered where we are right now, not so much the plan, but how we got here, which is really good. And really it sounds like President-elect Biden is going to really rely on experts, both in the public health crisis, but also the economic crisis, which is going to help a lot. So hopefully throughout this, we can get back on track and really make sure that everybody is taken care of and moving forward. So if you got some value from what I added to this conversation, please like this video. And in the comments below, tell me before you watch the next part of this series, which I'll put in a playlist on the end cap, that you tell me what you think is the first step in getting the economy going again. Once we get the pandemic under control, what do you think is really going to be the thing that's going to drive us forward the most? And why do you think that? Put that below. Otherwise, until I see you again around the internet, you have a great day. Bye.